やっぱり何にも決まらなかった。
How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Chaos Child. It's gonna be a little weird how I format this recap, because it is very weird what sort of happened in the last episode. Other than going back through the common route and getting the right delusions, the negative delusions, one positive delusion, and then messing around with a, not exactly a delusion, but a scenario where you keep on choosing positive until things just don't end up positive. But after all of that, the horrible moment that I don't want to talk about came around that I was not looking forward to, and something else happened. Excuse me. Uki actually showed up instead of Kirisu, and she stabbed us with her D-sword unintentionally, it seems. Seems like that was a total accident. And after that, we ended up somewhere else. We ended up in like what seems like a completely different like timeline, or we went back in time and nothing went wrong. I don't really know how to describe it. Something happened when we were stabbed, but that's all I know. Now we're basically in a world of Chaos Child where the murders have ended and everything is fine. No one close to us died. All is well in the world, I think. An hour later, it was time to go home, and Wakui, the club advisor, kicked us out. That son of a bitch. We decided to pick the topic for our next paper at a later meeting, and everyone headed home.
だからね、何度も言ってるけど、渋谷復興祭の裏側を取材して、そのレポートをすればいいじゃない。
私もそれがいいと思うな。楽しそうだし。
異議なし。ミスコンとかもあるらしいぜ。ぜひ裏側を取材させてほしいものですな。
やっぱり伊藤先輩ってそういう人なんですね。金輪際、私に近づかないでくださいね。
Wow.
君は冗談も通じんのか？
だから嘘をついてもわかります。冗談で言ってないですよね。
Ito and Arimura were about to get going again, so I interrupted.
復興祭のレポートとかそんなのどこでもやるだろう。僕はやっぱりニュージェネの狂気の再来事件の検証をちゃんとすべきだと思う。なんか気になるんだよ。もちろんその南沢千里さんのこととかはうまくぼかして隠し。
I made my suggestion, trying to be as delicate toward Kirisu as possible, but...
しつこいなお前も。あれはもういいって。それこそあっちこっちのサイトでやってるだろ。
私もそう思いますよ。というか、ぶっちゃけ思い出したくないですし。
Even Ito, who was so excited during the case, and Arimura, who was a part of it, were opposed. We'd had the same discussion during our meeting at school, and gotten nowhere.
和樹はどうだ？僕の意見をどう思う？
ん？
Did you say something? She seemed to say. That wasn't going to work. It was possible she hadn't even heard what we were talking about.
じゃあ山添は？
I turned toward Yamazoe, who was all the way in the back. She seemed surprised, as if she hadn't expected anyone to ask her opinion. Her eyes darted from left to right.
私は別に皆さんの決めたものでいいです。
それが決まらないから聞いてるんだけどな。
すみません。
She probably thought I was mad at her because she shrank back a little.
ダメだよタク。ウキちゃんをいじめちゃ。
いじめてないって。彼女だってもう新聞部員なんだ。意見があるならちゃんと尊重したいだろ。なあ。
But Yamazoe only shrank back even further and started to mumble.
いえ、私は特に意見とかないので。 すみません。
いや別に謝らなくてもいいけどさ。
I could see the corners of her eyes were getting wet, so I quickly waved my hands in apology. At this rate, it really would feel like I was bullying her. In the end, I couldn't think of anything else to say, so I fell silent. So much for that.
それじゃあ、タク、のんちゃん、ウキちゃん、また明日ね。皆さん、お疲れ様でした。
お疲れ様。
じゃあな。
I see we're all just one huge clique. Me, Kirisu, and Yamazoe said goodbye to the other four before we headed back to Alba Dorm. We watched and waved for a moment as they went, and then started to walk once more. I see we did not return to living in the RV. Even so, I would prefer doing that. No one said anything for a while. The only sound on the quiet residential street was our footsteps.
ねえタクル。
That's us.
Hmm?
It was Kirisu who broke the silence.
どう？元気？
ん？
いろいろあったけど、もう元気になったかなって。ほら、タクルって結構一人で抱え込んじゃうから。
Kirisu glanced at me, and then looked away as she spoke.
いろいろか。
Yeah, she probably wasn't just talking about the return of the new generation madness. She was probably talking about everything that had happened to us since the Shibuya earthquake. I thought back to all of that had happened. Come to think of it, I'd caused a lot of problems for Kirisu, and a lot of worry too.
見ればわかるだろ。もう大丈夫、すっかり元気だよ。そろそろトレーラーハウスに戻れると思うし。
え？戻る気なの？
Hell yeah. She was staring at me in surprise. Evidently, she hadn't expected that. She must have thought I was planning on staying at Alba Dorm forever.
いつまでも居候してるのは良くない。
そんな、もともとタクルの家なんだから、いいとか悪いとかないでしょう。
いや、僕にとってもさ、良くない気がする。このままだと甘えっぱなしになりそうだから。
いいのに、甘えても。
She seemed a little sad as she spoke.
聞いたか山添。お前、証人になってくれ。今度クルスに怒られそうになったら、甘えていいって言ったろって反論するから。
はい、わかりました。
ダメよダメ。それとこれとは話が別。
Kirisu turned toward Yamazoe and held up her hand palm outward in a stop sign.
わかりました。
おいおい、お前はどっちの味方だよ。
それは、すみません。
Yamazoe seemed genuinely sad. Evidently, jokes weren't something she understood. I scratched at my cheek, unsure of what to say. Kirisu rubbed her cheek with her fingers 2 or 3 times in the exact same way, and then slowed her pace until she was next to Yamazoe.
ねえ、ウキちゃん。
She forced herself to speak as cheerfully as possible.
はい？
今度の日曜、ショッピングに行かない？
ショッピング？
ウキちゃんの部屋、ほとんど何もないでしょ？それに、お洋服だってあんまり持ってないみたいだし。
Then I remembered. Yamazoe had moved in so quickly that we didn't have a room for her, so we'd cleaned out the storeroom instead. When I'd last looked in there, her room was basically empty. If it was still that way, it must be pretty bare.
でも、別に困っていないので。
ダメ。お部屋を明るくすれば気持ちだって明るくなるわ。それに女の子なんだから少しはおしゃれもしなくちゃ。タクルもそう思うでしょ？
え？なあ、もちろんじゃないか。おしゃれはリア充生活のための第一歩だしな。
ほらね、タクルも付き合ってくれるって。だから行きましょう。
I'm glad no one is questioning his use of the terminology there. What did the Empress just say?
あれもこれも買わなきゃいけないんだもの。女の子2人じゃ持ちきれないわ。
要するに荷物持ちだろ。
違うわ。可愛い女の子2人とデートさせてあげるって言ってるの。
Wait, don't you think it's a little embarrassing to say that about yourself? Or so I thought when...
そこで黙り込まないでくれる？言っちゃって自分で後悔してるんだから。
Kirisu went red up to her ears. Meanwhile, Yamazoe was frantically looking between us, as if she wasn't sure what to do.
とにかく今度の日曜は開けといてね。
でも私なんかのためにそんなご迷惑を。
ちょっとウキちゃん。私なんかとか言っちゃダメ。あと変な遠慮もやめること。私たちはね、もう友達。家族なんだから。タクルにも言ったけど、甘えるときは素直に甘えてほしいの。
家族？
そう、家族よ、ウキちゃん。
Uki didn't seem to know how to respond. It was like she was surprised, hesitant, smiling, and crying all at once. She looked at us, her expression blending all of those emotions.
ああ、それとね、タクルのことを宮代さんっていうのもそろそろやめにしましょう。タクルもよ。うちの家族はね、お互い名前で呼び合うのがルールだから。
Kirisu's voice was cheerful, but I felt an ache in my chest when I heard her, because I hadn't called her by her first name in half a year. Looking back, it was all over something stupid, but for some reason I'd gotten stubborn about it, and now I couldn't go back. Even though I knew how sad she looked sometimes when I called her Kirisu.
いいんでしょうか、そんな失礼なこと。
失礼じゃないわよ。遠慮はダメって言ったでしょ。
はい。
タクルも了解？
了解。山添じゃなくてウキな。
タクルさん。
Uki blushed as she spoke.
二人とも合格。じゃあタクル、日曜よろしくね。
そっちも了解。わかったよ。
I guess we really don't get a say in that. There is nothing in life so boring as being forced to go shopping with a girl. But that was part of my male noblesse oblige. You had to enjoy it the best you could. At least that's what Minamikata Kenji's column said in Cool Cat Press. It doesn't matter what route we're in, somehow Cool Cat Press is incorporated.
楽しみだわ。
And I'm not complaining. Kirisu tapped Uki lightly on the shoulder. Uki still didn't know what to say, but at last she said thank you in a tiny voice. And then...
家族。
She whispered the word again. I couldn't tell for sure, but she sounded very happy. But I don't feel happy. I don't sound happy. Bro, I'm fucking nervous. I don't know where this is gonna go, but it's not gonna go in a happy direction. I just know it. They're trying to pull the, oh yeah, everything's totally okay, and then pull the big one on us. I'm not looking forward to it. After spending so much time in that basement, Shibuya on a busy Sunday must have been quite a shock to her. Because Uki gasped in amazement. Her eyes were quickly moving from one thing to another, as if everything was new and exciting.
ウキちゃん、迷子にならないようにね。
はい。
タクルちゃんも気をつけるのよ。
今すぐ帰ってもいいんだぞ、僕は。
ダメだよ、タク。今日は最後まで付き合ってもらうんだから。
Wait, why are you here?
尾上が言うなって ていうか、なんでお前までいるんだよ。
ひどいな。私がいちゃダメなの？今のはすっごく傷つくですよ。最低です。セリに謝るべきです。
Okay, is everybody here?
偉そうに意見してるとこ悪いが、お前のことも呼んでないからな。
Arimura pouted. I didn't know where they found out about it, but when we got to the intersection in front of Shibuya Station, these two were waiting for us. They wanted to come shopping too, evidently. Anyway, Sarika and Arimura had really become good friends. I guess teenage girls were good at that.
まあいいじゃない。みんないた方が楽しいわよ。
Yay. I mean, yay! Kirisu laughed and I had a terrible feeling.
いいか尾上有村、最初に断っておくぞ。僕が持つのは雨季の荷物だけだ。お前たちがどんなにアホなものを買おうと絶対に持たないからな。
アホなものなんて買わないよ。宮代先輩がいつまで経っても童貞野郎な理由が今分かっちゃいました。
Wow.
おい有村、お前はやっぱり帰れ。
God.
童
雨季はそういうこと覚えなくていいからな。
ほらほら、ウキちゃんに妙なこと教えないの。時間なくなっちゃうから行くわよ。
Kirisu grabbed Uki's hand in a very natural way and started to walk ahead. Down in that basement, she'd probably offered her hand to a lot of people, but no one had ever offered a hand to her. Uki was staring at Kirisu's hand in shock. But instead of shaking it off, she matched Kirisu's pace and followed along. I went behind her. And behind me were Sarika and Arimura, chatting happily. 2 hours later...
ねえ先輩、この服なんてどうすか？
ん？わあ、素敵。綺麗な色。
それ私が欲しいな。
どうウキちゃん？
いいと思います。そっか。ウキはこういうのは好きじゃないのか。そんなことは。私がいるんだから嘘ついても分かっちゃうよ。
The four of them were talking in front of the store. I sat down on a nearby bench, feeling a little exhausted. This was the 7th place we'd been to, and we still hadn't bought anything. It's gonna be a long day. We'd gone from one shop to another, down a street filled with huge crowds. My head was starting to spin.
ねえタク、これとこれどっちのスカートがいいと思う？
ああ、右だな、右。
そう？でもこんなフリフリ私に似合うかな。
ってそれお前の買い物かよ。雨季の服を探せよ。
もうそんな怒らなくてもいいのに。すみませんタクルさん。
Uki came out of the store just in time to see me get mad.
もう帰りましょう。私やっぱりお洋服とかいらないので。
I quickly stood up.
いや、そんなつもりで言ったんじゃ。
けど
今日は雨季の買い物に来たんだし。
The conversation cut off. She shrank back and looked at the ground. She was staring at her feet, a look of despair in her eyes. I realized my mistake and scratched my head.
はい
僕もあまり人のこと言えないけど。
はい。
雨季はちょっと気にしすぎだと思う。この前クルスも言ってたけどさ、変な遠慮とかいらないから。己の10分の1くらいならわがまま言っても構わないし。
私の悪口ですか？聞こえてますけど。
I ignored Sarika and looked back at Uki. Uki had just lifted her own head, so our eyes met for a moment. We quickly looked away from each other.
ということだから僕のことは構わなくていいよ。
She seemed to think for a minute. But after a while, her pale crimson lips began to softly move.
ありがとうございます。ごめんなさい。
ほらほら二人とも次行くわよ。
Kirisu came over and grinned at me.
なんだよ。
タクルってばたまには私にもそのくらい優しくしてくれてもいいのにな。
だからなんだよそれ。ね
えみんな、パルクはどうかしら。お洋服だけじゃなくて他にも揃えたいものあるし。
Kirisu chuckled and then took Uki's hand and walked off in the direction of Parku.
うわー、かわいい。
いいですね。これで決まりじゃない？
We wandered around Parku for a while. Parku was a shop that sold natural fashion-style clothes. After having Uki try on several different outfits, they finally found one that they liked. Even I almost gasped when I saw her appear from inside the changing room. Uki fidgeted awkwardly as everyone complimented her. I wasn't used to getting compliments either, so I knew how she felt. But even I said,
見違えたよ。
the outfit looked that good on her.
ありがとうございます。じゃあこの服にします。
せっかくだからタグ取ってもらってこのまま着ていかない？
はい。
タクル、ウキちゃんの制服袋に入れてもらったから持っててね。
はいはい。
I hung the shopping bag off my shoulder. Uki quickly tried to grab it off.
ダメです。悪いです。私が持ちます。
任せちゃっていいのよ。今日はそのためについてきてもらったんだから。
Yeah, great.
だってさ、女帝様の言うことは聞いといた方がいい。それにさっきも言ったろ、気使わなくていいって。
ねえウキちゃん、こっちに可愛いアクセあるよ。見てみない？
ほら呼んでる。行ってきなよ。
I gave Uki a little push on the back.
それじゃあ少しの間だけお願いします。
Uki went over to the rest of the girls, but not before turning back to look at me several times. They all lined up and started to examine the jewelry. I couldn't help but smile a little as I watched them.
ありがとうタクル、助かるわ。
いや、まあなんだよ。僕もクルスにいろいろとしてもらったしさ。リハビリの時とか、新聞部を作る時とか。
ほら、少しは恩に感じてくれてるんだ。
No, let's not go there.
当たり前だろ。
だったらもっとたくさん恩返ししてもらわなくっちゃね。
Paying you back how? Kirisu's mischievous smile seemed a little scary.
ダメだよウキ。下着も可愛いの揃えないと。いえ、私は普通ので。それじゃあつまんないじゃん。
I no longer like this conversation and I want out.
向こうにランジェリーのお店あったよね。よし、私たちが選んであげよう。タク、のんちゃん、行くよ。
ほら行きましょうタクル。
って待て無理だからな。下着の店なんて入れるか。
I tried to resist as Kirisu dragged me by the arm.
そんなことないわよ。彼女と一緒に選んであげてる男の子結構いるんだから。
Okay, but that's a little different here.
そうなのか。
タクルも早くそういう恋人ができるといいわね。
Arimura and Serica stopped to look at me and said, "Nope, not happening for a while. You've got that right." Damn, we got some shitty friends here, man. I have to be that truthful. The truth hurts. The two of them started to cackle. It was the truth, so I couldn't say anything back. Uki, however, just stared, blinking and bewildered.
恋人
I heard her whisper the words mysteriously.
とりあえずこのくらいでいいかな。
おう。
Now, we don't get an opinion here, Takuru. We're the boys. Kirisu had ended up buying all kinds of things for Uki, from clothes to toiletries to even decorations for her room. So my arms were full of bags and my joints were starting to ache. Kirisu, Serica, and Arimura had all had their hands full too, but as befitted an empress, Kirisu didn't seem to be bothered at all. And half of the bags that Serica and Arimura were carrying were things they'd bought for themselves, so instead of complaining, they were chattering happily. Since no one else was complaining, that meant I couldn't either. I'd looked like a loser.
ねえウキちゃん、他に欲しいものはない？
いえ、もう大丈夫です。
そう？それじゃあ帰りましょうか。
We all began to head for Alba Dorm as twilight approached. Uki was walking a half step behind as everyone else walked in front.
これで随分と女の子らしい部屋になるわ。
だといいな。ん？
Kirisu laughed a little. I looked at her confused.
思い出したの。タクルが昏睡から目を覚ました時のこと。
Where is this coming from all of a sudden?
あれからもう5年になるのね。あの時もこうやってタクルの身の回りのものを買いに来たのよ。
そうなのか。
私とのんちゃんで買い物したんだからね。感謝するように。
I had no idea. I remembered being surprised at how much stuff was ready for me.
そっか。助かったよ、二人とも。
ねえ、そういえば覚えてるセリカ。最後の最後でちょっと喧嘩しちゃったこと。
ああ、あれね。
Nah, man, that would have been the first, but another time would have been the last.
あの時はほんとショップの中で大激論したわ。タクルの下着はトランクスがいいかブリーフがいいかって。
Yeah, of course that was the argument, of course.
そんなことで激論すんな。
I glared at them and my face turned red.
ちなみにのんちゃんはトランクス、私は黒のブリーフがいいと言って譲りませんでした。
なんで黒だよ。
結局じゃんけんで私が負けちゃったんだ。残念だな。
残念なのはお前の趣味だ。
タクは絶対にトランクスじゃないよ。ひなちゃんもそう思うでしょ。いや、というかそもそも宮代先輩が何を履いていようと女の子の前でそれを晒すような色っぽい出来事なんて起こりそうにないわけで関係ないのでは？
Why have we gotten roasted so many times in this one episode? I don't understand.
ああ、確かにそうだね。
Is this truly better than the tragedy that we faced in the common route? I hated to admit it, but it was the truth, so I couldn't say anything back. As my shoulders shook with rage, and it was definitely rage, not exhaustion from the heavy bags, I saw Kirisu suddenly turn around.
あら？ウキちゃんは？
I'd been so focused on the conversation that I hadn't noticed. But when I turned around, she was gone. I looked around to see where she'd gone. I found her. I could see the top of her tiny head on the other side of the crowd. She'd stopped in front of a store and was looking through the window pane.
ウキ？
I went back to see what it was that she was looking at. It was a fairly large florist's shop. Uki was staring in amazement at all the plants lined up in the window. We'd been to a lot of different places today, but this was the first one I'd seen her so interested in. Some of the plants were as tall as I was, with leaves growing out of a strong, thick trunk, and some of them were tiny, pretty flowers whose vases would fit in your hands. It felt like you could stare at all the different kinds for hours. I could hear her tiny voice saying, "Wow," as she looked at them.
好きなのかそういうの
She must not have realized I was there because she looked up at me in shock. And then she realized that she'd been pressing her face up to a store window and blushed.
すみません、つい。謝ることなんてないわ。見てるだけで癒されるものね。
私アレカヤシとか好きだな。私はパキラですかね、やっぱり。
The girls were smiling as they looked at the plants in the windowsill too.
あ、そうだ。せっかくだし、ウキちゃんのお部屋に何か飾ろうか。あんまり大きいのは持って帰れないし、世話も大変だから小さいのになっちゃうけど。無理です。私、観葉植物のお世話したことありません。
そうなのか
Aren't you just supposed to give it water and any nutrients it needs? Come on, I learned from Persona 5, it's not that hard. I was kind of surprised. She'd been so dedicated to taking care of the patients at that hospital that I was sure she'd taken good care of the plants there too.
住んでいた地下のお部屋はお日様が当たらなくてみんな枯れてしまうので。
あ、そうだよな
Uki had lived in a dark basement with no sunlight at all. She'd lived there for years and then finally she'd been abandoned. I suddenly remembered the despair in her eyes when she'd seen the empty basement. She must have remembered it too because she suddenly cast her gaze downward. Kidisu forced herself to speak in a chipper voice.
それなら大丈夫。ウキちゃんのお部屋ね、実は物置なんかにしておくのはもったいなかったのよ。日当たりとかとってもいいんだから。
ほら好きなの探してこいよウキ小さな鉢植えくらいならまだ持てるし
もしも一人で育てるのが難しそうなら私と一緒にどうかしら。一緒に？そう、私たちはもう家族なんだしね。
ってことで早くしろよな僕の気が変わらないうちに。
Uki went inside the flower shop, still hesitant but smiling. I remember I had a plant one time, or my family did. Back at our old house, which was a 2-story house, we had a plant. I don't know what specifically it was, but it had leaves. I know that for a fact, some big leaves. And the main vine would grow, and we would actually like rope it. I think we like roped it up around the top of the kitchen and then along the bottom of the railing for the second floor of the house because we actually had the hallway that overlooked the living room. It was a really cool house, by the way. I really liked our old house. And eventually the plant just got too long, so we had to, I think we just flat out got rid of it. I think we cut it down first. Like we actually cut the vines, the plant, whatever you want to call it, down. So it was a lot shorter. I think we still took care of it for a while before we got rid of it. Good times. I hope to always remember that plant going into my future. As soon as we got back to Albadorm, the girls all went to decorate Uki's room. I, of course, stayed behind. Excuse me. After about an hour and a half of waiting...
タクルにお待たせ。もういいよ。
I'm glad you're alive. Yui finally came to tell me that it was alright, so I went to see Uki's room.
どれどれ
ふふん、タク フってば絶対にびっくりするよ。しますよ。
そんなに。
I'm sure I'll hate it. Oh. How much fucking shit did they buy? How were they able to decorate this much? Where did so many of these things come from? Like the accessories on the left, the pictures and frames on the left wall, I don't even know if that desk and chair were there over there before, or that, like, I don't even know what you can call it. Cupboard? No, I don't think that's the terminology. I don't know what that is, but where did all of this come from? There is no way that we bought all that. It really was that surprising. I was amazed at what I saw. Was this the same empty room I'd seen just a little while ago? There were pretty curtains on the windowsill. A fluffy girly comforter sat on the bed. A soft carpet had been laid on the cold floor, and the small shelving unit even had some stuffed animals, probably courtesy of Kirisu or Serika. Beautiful photos and attractive frames now hung on the empty white walls, which had looked like something from a hospital room. The light bulbs had even been replaced with ones that cast a warmer shade of light. The desk, chair, and shelves, which had only been used for work, had now been done up into something much more appropriate for a little girl's room. On top of the shelves, we can call them shelves. I don't know why I didn't call them shelves. On top of the shelves was the plant Uki had picked out. I don't even know what that is, I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me, its leaves were bright and green.
すごいな。
でしょ？
As I looked around the room in amazement, I saw a tiny girl looking sad in the corner of the room. It was Uki, the room's owner.
どうしたウキ？
こんな素敵なお部屋初めてで、どこにいればいいのかわからなくて。
I couldn't help but laugh as I saw her clasp her hands in front of her chest and fidget.
自分の部屋なんだから堂々としてればいいじゃないか。ベッドにでも座ってろよ。
I patted the cute comforter on the bed.
ベッドに誘うとか先輩やらしい。
Can you leave?
誘ってないだろ。お前いつもそんなことばっか言ってるな。
もうそんなムキにならなくても先輩冗談が通じなさすぎます。
お前のは冗談に聞こえないんだよ。
I glared at Arimura, but she just stuck her tongue out and laughed. Serika, Kirisu, and Yui all started laughing too. Uki, however, just looked around at everyone, as if she didn't know what we were talking about. And that's okay. Me, Serika, Kirisu, Ito, Arimura, Kazuki, and now Uki, the newest member of the Hekiho newspaper club, was here as well. We all looked a little tired. Our meeting to decide what we'd put in the next issue hadn't been going well at all.
ああ、もういい。部長の僕がそろそろ結論を出したいと思う。
結論も何も復興祭の裏側レポートで問題ないじゃん。
いや、いくらなんでもそれは安直すぎる。
しつこいな。まさかお前まだニュージェネの狂気の再来事件にこだわってるんじゃないだろうな。もう誰も興味持ってないぜ。
Kirisu's face contorted with sadness for an instant when she heard the name Return of the New Generation Madness. She was probably thinking about Minamisawa Senri, the killer who'd committed suicide.
いや、別にニュージェネじゃなくてもいいんだ。他にもっと何かないかなと。
Since Kirisu was here, I didn't want to go into it any further, but it still seemed strange to me. Yeah, it's unfortunate in these routes that, like, there's no real clarity to the actual main plot. And that's like the only big thing that really bothers me here is that, you know, the characters are always going to be left in the dark. But at the same time, maybe that's for the best, because the actual truth is very painful. Literally, no one cared about the new generation madness anymore. That case had altered every aspect of our lives and attracted the attention of the entire nation, and now everyone had just forgotten about it?
個人的意見としても確かにオワコンの極みっすよね。
I don't know why we saw that for a second. I don't like that scene. When I saw how casual Arimura was acting, I only became more suspicious. It didn't make sense. What was the reason for this difference between me and everyone else? It is a little odd when you think about it.
ねえみんな、ここは平等に決めましょう。多数決にすればいいわよね。
Like, hold on, let's think about that for a second. Obviously, this reality isn't real. Like, something about it isn't right. But the thing is, it wouldn't make a lot of sense if this whole event, all of these cases that were occurring, these deaths, if you will, they never made any sense. Like, how the killer actually did these things. Like, oh, the killer just did these wacky things. No one knows how she actually did it, and then she just set herself on fire and stuck a freaking, like, I don't know what it's called, but the big ass iron rod down her throat through her body and made a kebab out of herself. Like, there's just so much in terms of unknowns that you would think that the internet and other people would be on it to try and, like, figure this out before giving it up. Instead, they just gave it up. Kirisu seemed eager to smooth things over.
まあいいんじゃね。宮代は？
いいだろう。そういうことなら受けて立とうじゃないか。
I would have to give up on persuading Ito and Arimura, two people who were easily influenced by trends. But I was sure that the others would understand.
話はまとまったみたいね。それじゃあ僭越ながら副部長の私が決を取ります。まず復興祭の取材に賛成の人、挙手してください。
I heard everyone gulp a little, and then the veil of silence dropped. Ito and Arimura raised their hands immediately. A moment later, Kazuki slowly raised her own.
わかった、3人ね。では次。ニュージェネの狂気の再来事件についてもう少し掘り下げたいと考えている人、挙手してくれる？
I raised my own hand immediately. What about Serika and Kirisu? If they didn't go for Ito and Arimura's proposal, then that meant Serika and Kirisu would agree with me.
おい。
But only Serika raised her hand, Kirisu didn't.
ちょっと待てクルス。どっちにも手を挙げないってのはどういうことだ？伊藤に賛成じゃないんならイコール僕に賛成ってことなんじゃないのか？
どうしてだかわからないけど、どちらもあまり乗り気にはなれないの。だから今回は棄権させてくれる？
危険？そんなのおかしいだろ。
そう？だったら私はどっちかっていうと復興祭。
クルスは危険か、仕方ないな。
God damn it.
おい、今復興祭に1票って言いかけて。
いや、やはりここは危険というクルスの自由意志を尊重すべきだ。
うわぁ。
I deliberately ignored Arimura's cold glance. Anyway, if Kirisu or Kazuki voted with me, I could have made it a tie. At this rate, things weren't looking good.
開票の結果、結論は出たみたいね。あら？
Everyone in the room looked toward a single spot. Next to me, fidgeting awkwardly but still raising her hand, was...
ウキ？
確認だけど、今ウキちゃんが手を挙げているのは、つまり
はい、私はタクルさんに賛成します。
My eyes met with Uki's. Her little eyes seemed to be sending me a message that only I could see.
あ、いや。
You know what? I can kind of understand that.
見ちゃった。なに今の目と目で通じ合ってる的なアイコンタクト。
Oh, great. Okay, well, before we jump into this boat, I can understand why she would want us to explore the new generation madness stuff again. I mean, think about it. She lost all those patients where she was staying at for years, happily even. Something happened in that respect, and she wants to know what. That's even a mystery that we haven't solved in the common
い
route.
つの間にどうやってウキちゃんを手なずけた？
ロリコンだ、犯罪だ。
God damn it. Well, I guess we should have expected that terminology to come up at some point. The whole room started to buzz like someone had poked a beehive.
もうなんて顔してるの？
Kirisu laughed and gently put her hand on my shoulder.
子供は直感的に相手の善悪を見抜くものなのよ。タクルはウキちゃんに OK をもらったと思って自信持てばいいのよ。
Uki was glancing up at me from time to time, her cheeks still blushing pale red. Did that mean she'd taken a liking to me? Of course, that wasn't a bad thing, but none of this all seemed quite real, especially the way everyone was willing to just give up on the new generation madness case.
やあみんな、おお、具合よく全員揃ってるみたいだね。
Yeah. Wakui smiled as he opened the door and came inside.
お、先生が部室に来るなんて珍しいですね。
ああ、うん。実はね、今日はみんなが喜ぶ話題が降ってきてね、少しでも早く伝えてあげようと思って。
私たちを喜ばせる話題ですか？
まあもっとはっきり言えば、みんなというよりは宮代くんをと言った方がいいかな。
Why us?
僕を
My heart started pounding a little faster when he said my name.
ほら、文化祭でさ、宮代くんたちがディスカッションを行うことになっていた件があったよね。
He was probably trying to be as vague as possible because of what had happened with Watabe. When he saw the tension on everyone's face, he quickly continued.
あの番組を担当していたっていうニコニア動画のディレクターからうちに連絡があったんだよ。
ニコニア動画のディレクターですか？
そうなんだよ。実はね、生前渡部さんが記者として出演していたニュース番組に渡部さんの代わりとして宮代くんに出てほしいって。
What?
僕がですか？ニコニアのニュース番組に？
Bro, that's so absurd. There's no way that would ever
あん
happen.
なことにはなってしまったけど、渡部さんは実力はあったわけで、その渡部さんが目をつけて対談したいとまで思った宮代くんにディレクターは大いに興味を持ったらしいんだ。
A liking to Takuru, but why?
そこで現役高校生記者コメンテーターとして出演してみないかって。
Watabe's new program, that was Nikuniya News, right? The most popular source of information around? And they wanted me as a commentator. Could that really be real?
どうだろう宮代くん。先方はぜひにと言っているんだけど。
Can we question things now, please? After the initial shock faded, I felt a weird kind of happiness. It felt like I was walking on top of a cloud. But could I really do such an important job? If I tripped over my tongue or panicked, I would look stupid in front of the viewers. Everybody would be laughing at me, excuse me.
すごいじゃんタク。これはチャンスだよ。
チャンス？
Bro, this is weird.
おいおい、どうしたんだよ宮代。ニコニアニュースったらすげえ人気番組じゃねえか。何も迷うことなんてないだろ。
そうですよ。これぞまさに千載一遇。他の人から見れば喉から手が出るほど欲しがっても手に入らないくらいのスーパーウルトラデラックスチャンスっすよ。
これで情弱どもに真の状況だけが持つ本当の力を思う存分見せつけてやれるぞ。いやーよかったな。
その
Still, I wasn't sure what to do. Of course, the offer was an enticing one, but it was for the whole of the Hekiho newspaper club. I would have accepted without a second thought. We all did the investigations together, so it wasn't right for me to take all the credit. And what's more...
いいじゃないタクル。迷っているならとりあえずやってみればいいのよ。当たって砕けろよ。
大丈夫大丈夫、タクならできるって。
いや、そう簡単に言うけど。
Bro, I really feel like we're in a delusion of some sort. Serica said I could do it, but I wasn't sure I really could. I was a shy person to begin with, so I didn't know how I would be able to talk on camera.
そう難しく考えることないっすよ。いつも私たちにしてるみたく思ったことを喋ればいいだけなんですから。
いつもみたいに。
それに相手はカメラで人間じゃない。そう考えると気が楽だろ。
大丈夫、タクさえそう望んでいるなら絶対間違いなくうまくいくって。
Even after all that, I still wasn't sure what I should do, until I felt a small tug at my shirt.
私もタクルさんならきっとできると思います。
For some reason, when I saw how serious she was, even if she was still a little, trepidatious, whatever, about speaking, I felt a lot better.
どうかな、宮代くん。
じゃあやってみることにします。
これで一気に部も注目を集めて新入部員も怒涛のごとく押し寄せてくるに違いない。
Serica and Arimura each gave each other a high five, big grins on their faces.
じゃあ先方にはそう伝えて。ああ、そうだ、忘れてた。
Wakui clapped his hands together as if he just remembered something.
せっかくだから初回は渋谷復興祭の会場から生中継にしたいって話だけど、それで構わないよね。
A live broadcast from the Shibuya Restoration Festival, which meant...
一応学生ということで金銭的なギャランティーの発生は難しくてね。代わりにメインイベントのプラチナチケットを宮代くんのために用意してくれるそうなんだよ。
The main event for the Shibuya Restoration Festival was going to be held at the Hikariwo Theater Cube. Of course it was. Major celebrities were going to be there, and the tickets had sold out seconds after going on sale. Supposedly it cost a fortune to get one from a scalper on the internet now.
いいないいな、超ビップ扱いじゃん、タク。
くっさ、なんだよ。そんなことなら俺が出るって言っときゃよかった。
As I heard them all complain, my uneasiness disappeared, and instead I felt joy at being chosen.
宮代くん、それでも構わないね。
はい。
じゃあ先方には伝えておくから。
I'm sorry guys, but this is all too out of the blue. He smiled one last time and left the room.
よかったわね、タクル。
I guess not really out of the... Well, I guess it could be out of the blue, but also too good to be true. This has to be like... I don't know if you can call it going back in time or going to another timeline, world line, whatever. I honestly believe we are in a delusion that's been going on for far too long. And it's catering to Takuru.
当然といえば当然だけどな。
Okay, maybe not catering to Takuru, but
その発
definitely
言
is
ダ
now.
ウトです。タクってば素直じゃないんだから。
Then my eyes met with Uki's again. She's gotten quiet while everyone else had been excited.
よかったですね、タクルさん。
まあ。
Her smile was a flower that wasn't quite in full bloom, and somehow seeing it made me feel really strange. Hey, careful there, Takuru. I don't like that direction. We stayed there and talked about Nikoniya news until the sun set and the chime rang to tell us it was time to go home. After the big news, we hadn't gotten anywhere with our next project, but that was fine. We each grabbed our bags and headed for the shoeboxes.
なあ、宮代のニヤ生が評判良けりゃ新入部員入ってくれるよな。
そしたら予算も増えるし、言うことなしっすね。
だったら嬉しいな。タクたちが卒業しちゃうと部活も一気に寂しくなっちゃうし。
We still didn't know what was going to happen, but they were already getting excited. I ignored them and went to take my shoes out of their box. What was this? On top of my shoes, I could feel something thin like paper. Maybe it's paper. I took it out, wondering what it might be.
これって
It was definitely one of those things you put letters in, an envelope. Yeah, that's right. And what's more, it was a very cute envelope, which smelled kind of good. In large letters in the center, it said, "To Miyashiro." I turned it around and there was a heart-shaped sticker sealing it shut. Man, what is going on, dude? My mind had frozen up for a second, but now it started to race. Could this be... No, wait, don't be hasty, Miyashiro Takuru. You don't know it for a fact yet. I flipped it around and looked at the other side again. There was a name on the envelope. Who the fuck is that? Aozaki Yumi?
Aozaki.
Or is it Yume? Who's that? I tried to remember, but nothing came to me.
夢だよなこれ
Is it one of those, like, no names from our class?
タク、何してるの？
別に何もしてないよ。
あら？今背中に何か隠さなかった？
隠してない。隠してなんかない。
Up, here she comes.
あ、今の嘘です。
God damn it.
ってことは、
あ、花ちゃん。
Kazuki had snuck behind me at some point. She quickly grabbed the letter out of my hands.
おい、これって。
もしかしてラブレター？
Everyone started to shout as they peered at the letter in Kazuki's hands.
嘘！タクに？
マジっすか？差出人は？
青崎夢でいいんだよね、これ。
待って、青崎ってもしかしてあの2年の青崎さん？
なんだと？
Ito and Arimura gasped in surprise at almost the exact same time.
知ってるのか伊藤。
知ってるのかって。お前こそ知らないのかよ。青崎っつったら我が校を代表する10年に1人の美少女って有名だろ。
I had no idea. Yeah, I had no
彼女
idea.
のことなら私も知ってるわ。まるで少女漫画の世界から抜け出してきたみたいに美人だっていう噂の。
当社費によりますと、美少女ランキングでは学年という枠組みを飛び越え、碧峰学園でダントツ1位かと。
そんな美少女がタクにラブレター？
What the fuck? No, Kazuki, there's no need to punch the shoeboxes and find out if they hurt.
嘘だろ。あの子が、あの青崎さんが、あんなとびっきりにスペシャルな美少女が宮代にラブレターだと。嘘だ。何かの間違いだ。さもなければいたずらだ。
Ito was stomping his feet and throwing a tantrum. He looked like he might be about to weep tears of blood. Was this Aozaki Yume really that pretty?
いや、みんな落ち着け。伊藤の言う通りいたずらって可能性もあるわけで。
I tried to play it cool and speak in a calm level voice. I failed. Even I could tell my voice was shaking. The most beautiful girl in the school had sent me a love letter. Was this the beginning of a wonderful romance? Was I about to say goodbye to my days of being single and enter the world of the normies? No, of course, I was already a normie, but I meant in the other sense of the word. There's more than one
ダ
sense of
メ
the
よ
word.
タクル。
Kirisu suddenly turned to me with a serious look on her face.
ダメって何が？
最初からいたずらなんて決めつけちゃ失礼でしょってこと。ちゃんと真面目に読んでお返事しなきゃダメだからね。
あ、それくらい分かってるよ。
From the look in her eyes, I could tell that she sensed my excitement. Oh well, there is no sense in trying to fool Kirisu anyway.
おい宮代、読め、今読め、すぐ読め、早く読め。何が書いてあるのか今ここで読んでみせろ。
Why would I do that? Wait a minute. Ito looked like he was about to pounce on me.
落ち着け、伊藤。
これが落ち着いていられるか。
伊藤君。
All it took was one word for him to quiet down.
そんな大勢で晒すような真似しちゃかわいそうよ。こういうものはもらった本人が一人で読むのがマナーでしょ。
そうだよ。そういうわけで。
宮代先輩のケチンボ。
I tried my best to remain calm as the others complained, and then slid the letter into my bag. Of course, I was actually trying my best to suppress the desire to read it right now. Still, first the Nikoniya offer and then a letter from a girl. What was happening to my life? At least we're questioning it. Suddenly, I felt a weird sensation run down my spine. Someone was staring at me. I turned around. Oh, what the fuck? And then I saw something huge, something that most certainly did not belong here. It was like some kind of twisted piece of art. A D-sword. Uki was standing behind the rest of the group, staring at me intently with a stern expression on her face. In her hand was a shining, beautiful blade, the D-sword. My mind went blank for a second.
ウキ、何を？
What's happening here, boys? Excuse me?
あれ？
What was that? I know I just saw a D-sword. I tried blinking a few times, but Uki wasn't holding any kind of sword at all.
どうかしましたか？
あ、いや。
What was that? Maybe a hallucination caused by the setting sun? I don't think that's how that works.
ちょっとだけでいいから。
いい加減にしなさい伊藤君。
The tiny little doubt I had eventually disappeared as I listened to the others chatter. Well, that is, concerning. Hey, at least we're heading to the correct home. When the door closed... Oh no. My cool, casual demeanor broke into a giant grin. I was going to be a guest commentator on Nikoniya News. And on top of that, I'd gotten a love letter from Aozaki Yume, the most beautiful girl in the school. On the way back home, I had had to stop myself from skipping around Shibuya.
いや、待て、宮代タクル。
I said the words aloud to try and get myself under control. Some things were too good to be true. Maybe Ito was right and it was just a prank. The first rule of entertainment was to make it seem like things were going well right before everything goes to hell. Yeah, see, I told you guys in the beginning of the episode, that's probably what this shit's trying to do to us. Not that my life was mere entertainment, of course. Well... Anyway, if it was a prank, why would anyone bother? Was the goal to laugh and make fun of me? Who'd want to do that? Oh, come on. Seriously? Well, I guess this is a perfect place to stop. I kind of wanted to see what the letter had said. Just out of pure curiosity. But we'll save it there, and we'll save it here on the 27th slot as well, because I want to have a save slot on every delusion of this chapter, because the other ending that we can get here, and also the bad endings, are brought on by, I guess, which delusions you choose positive or negative on. So that's why I'm going to try and organize things a little better here. So that was interesting. That was just slightly interesting what happened back there. Okay, here's the thing. I knew something was up for a while, and I'm sure you guys could tell too. Things weren't right. Things were weird. First, there's the whole thing with the new generation madness, or the return of it. The fact that people were acting so strange about it, despite the fact that that shit was like huge news, and now after a couple of days, it's not? That just doesn't make any sense. The mystery is still there. People wouldn't just drop off of that until something was figured out, or if, you know, everybody collectively came to the conclusion that there was no way to figure it out. They wouldn't just drop it off. And then those two events at the end, Takuru getting chosen to be a commentator for news, and Takuru getting a love letter, two things that would never happen ever, and I can confidently say that. So just, I don't know what's going on specifically, but I can definitely say this. Okay, maybe not definitely, but here's my prediction. We did not jump world lines. We didn't go back in time and things are just different. None of that happened. This is just a delusion. It has to be. We're stuck inside of a delusion that's brought on by Uki's D-Sword, her power. Whatever her power is. And maybe she's trying to get us out. That's honestly my best prediction, based on everything that just happened there at the end. We're stuck in a delusion that seems to be kind of catering to Takuru. And honestly, sure, everything is better in this world, but this is a false sense of reality. It's a false reality, I guess you could just straight up say. Oh man. That's why I love Chaos Child. The shit's always crazy. It always gets me on my toes. I actually wasn't going to record as long as I did, but I don't know, it's just whenever a mystery aspect comes into play, like I can't help myself. I got to keep going. So this was fun. This was a good episode. And the reason why I wasn't planning on recording as long as I did is because it's as hot as it's ever been, like for this entire year here. I think today's like high was 111. So today was just a hot day, and I still like, you know, exercise and all that. So your boy was out of breath before this session even started, but I knew I had to get something recorded. And there was also the concern that the power might go out because of the heat. But here I am, rambling away with the risk of the power going out. That's always good. But I am glad that I recorded as much as I did, and now I'm really excited for the next episode. I hope you guys are as well. If you enjoyed this one, please leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.